Hello everyone, welcome to another art video. Today I will be taking you through 4 different mini landscape paintings, and I will be going through my steps of how to paint them. In my Ohuhu art supplies unboxing video, I unboxed this 24 set of watercolors that they kindly sent to me, and in that video I said I would try them out in a separate video, and that is what I will be doing here. Maybe you clicked on this video to follow along, to have some fun in your sketchbook doing some landscapes with watercolor, or maybe you just want to sit back and relax. Whatever the reason, I hope you enjoy, and please let me know if you did any of these landscape paintings. So first off, I took a ruler and a pencil and I started blocking in the squares I would be working in, and the measurements for each one were roughly 9 by 8 centimeters, but it doesn't really matter how big or small. It's totally up to you if you want to do it smaller or larger. And so now I am just blocking in and sketching just the simple shapes of the picture, where the land is and the bushes. I will link down below the 4 references I used so you can look at them while you are sketching. And I'm just doing like really simple shapes. I'm not trying to get every single dimension right. Here I am taking a kneaded eraser and I'm just lightening up the sketch before I start painting. I am using the wet on wet technique, and I'm putting a thin layer of water on the sky portion. Then I'm taking cobalt blue and dabbing it across the sky. I will list down in the description the colors I used for all the paintings. If you are interested, you can check down there, but feel free to use any paint you have. So with this painting, I want some diversity in the sky, so I'm not swiping back and forth in even lines to get a solid coverage. I'm kind of swiping randomly, creating white spots and just blending here and there. I will note this was the first time using these watercolors, and I'm not sure if it's the paper I was using, but when I first put the cobalt blue on it, it kind of looked grainy, like the paint was not evenly mixed. But the paper I'm using isn't specifically watercolor paper. It's mixed media, so that could be a factor in why it was being like that. I did try it on actual watercolor paper and it was not grainy, so that just leads me to believe that it is just the paper I'm using. However, it didn't affect the painting all that much. Here I'm using the wet on wet technique again. This is a reoccurring thing I'm doing with a lot of the paintings in this video. So I'm starting with Hooker's green, and then I go in with some sap green. You can use whatever paints you have, just so there's a little bit of diversity in the greens. I'm just stroking in an angle because it's a little bit of a hill, and I'm just dabbing kind of randomly, just getting a feel for it. So while it's still a little bit wet, but not too wet, so that the Scarlet paint doesn't explode and spread everywhere, you want it to be a little bit wet, but not too wet, if that makes any sense. It should be dried enough after you have put the first layer down. And I'm just dabbing this Scarlet red, and in the back I'm just dabbing them smaller to create depth. Next, I'm just taking some yellow and I'm dabbing more flowers here and there, but they will be fewer than the red ones. Taking a medium to dark green, I'm starting on the bushes and trees in the background, and I'm just dabbing dots and strokes here and there, creating smaller trees and bigger trees. And then later we will be taking a really dark green and adding some more fewer strokes to create shadows and depth within the trees. So next, once you have your base layer down, it's time to add the final details. So here I am adding the grass and the stems to the flowers, and I'm just adding bigger strokes closer up and then gradually making them smaller, as I said before, to create depth within the painting. And farther off, as you can see here, I'm just adding little strokes to indicate that there's grass there. But I'm not filling in the whole thing because that would create too much busyness within the painting. And then just randomly, I wanted to add some strokes, as you see here in the painting, just to tie it all together. And then I'm taking some more red, a little bit of a darker red, and I am going over certain parts of the flowers just to make them pop out more. I also wanted to give my thoughts on these watercolor paints. Considering the price, which I would say is pretty affordable, they give you a very wide range of colors. And I think they're perfect for people that are just getting into watercolors and want to try them out in their sketchbook, having fun. I would recommend them to anybody that wants to start with watercolor or just to have them to build their creativity and just to explore watercolor. Then after all that, you get the satisfaction of peeling the tape off. I always love this part after finishing a painting, and that is the first watercolor landscape. So starting on this second landscape, I'm going in straight in with a light blue paint, and I am dabbing it here and there. I am trying to create white patches because in the original picture there is clouds, so I'm trying to get that in. Then I'm using the wet on wet technique yet again, and I'm taking a yellower green. And then here I am taking some yellow ochre. I'm dabbing it here and there to match the reference photo. Then I'm taking some darker green and dabbing it again in some of the spots. I'm outlining the path, and I'm taking some pale green and adding it to each side. For the path, I'm using some brown mixed with a bit of white, so it is a bit lighter. And then later I'm going to add some shadows on the path using a muted blue. Here I'm taking a darker green, putting it where I see darker spots on the reference photo. Then I just go in and put some of the grass in. I gradually build up the layers. Some of it I add a bit darker, some of it a bit lighter, varying shapes, and just put it wherever you see different spots. In the reference, there is a fence line, so I am making longer lines, and then farther away, I'm making smaller lines. Then here, as I said before, I'm going in with some darker grass, and then I start filling in some of the trees / bushes in the background, doing the same thing as the first painting. I add little final touches, such as you see here, a little bit of blending, a little bit of more grass. It's definitely a process to know when to stop, because you can definitely overwork a painting, adding too much. And with watercolor, it's hard to go back. But with practice and not putting too much pressure on yourself, you can make a really pretty painting. Moving on to our fourth painting, and this time for the sky, I am just doing a simple blue gradient. Next, I am painting in the mountains, and as I come further in and fill in the closer ones, I am darkening the blue. So while this is still a little bit wet, I am doing some lines and some dashes and just making a bit of a texture to it, because in the reference photo there are trees, and so I'm just putting some of that on my mountains. And then in the background there, as you see, I'm adding some more depth to it, just so it's not just a blob of blue. Next, I'm taking an emerald green color, and I am filling in the grass, doing splotches here and there of green. Next, I'm filling in the flowers on this mountain scene. I'm doing some purple flowers, and then I'm gonna take some yellow here and do some dots of that as well. taking a bit of a darker green, I am filling in grass once again. This is a reoccurring theme, of course, throughout these paintings. Alrighty, next we are doing some trees. And first off, when I do trees, I usually do a thin line just so I have a point of reference. And these are so easy. You just need this round brush. I'm using a size 6, and you just do dashes as I'm doing down a little bit on an angle, like it's not coming straight out. It's on an angle a little bit, and just doing a couple of variations starting from the top going down to the bottom. You can add as many or as little as you want. It's really up to you, and I would recommend using a bit of a darker green. So I add some of those, and then I'm taking a bit of a darker yellow and just dotting the yellow flowers again, adding some purple ones, adding some darker green to the bushes, and then adding a couple more purple flowers. And finally, for our last painting, we are going out with a bang. We are doing a sunset painting. I really love how this one turned out. So again, wet on wet technique, doing a thin layer, and then I'm taking just some plain old yellow, and I'm doing a couple streaks across the sky, and then I'm taking an orangey red, and I'm putting that at the bottom. And then I'm doing a little bit of a bluey purple, and then I add some more. Then I add some more red, and then I take a very light wash of blue. And you have to be careful here because when doing sunsets with watercolor, you can easily make it muddy. So you don't want to over mix the colors, so be very intentional about where you're placing them. And then I'm taking kind of a muted orange, and I'm adding some streaks to the sky, and just putting some more streaks lower down where the land meets the sky. Then using a clean brush, I'm just slightly going over some of the harsher lines just so it's more blendy. I'm adding a bit more red to the sky. And then I am going down and working on the land. I'm doing some streaks and then taking a darker green. I'm doing some dots and splotches filling in the white space, going back and forth with my paintbrush. Then there were very faint mountains in the distance, so I did those with a darker blue. I think it really tied in the whole painting, having that on the horizon line. And then of course, again, grass. Then in the distance, I am putting in some dark bushes with dark green again, and I put some more a little bit closer here and there. As a final touch, I added some paint splatters to the bottom part of the painting just to make it more fun, and I like to do that with watercolor. This was my first tutorial video, so it might have been a little choppy or confusing, but I hope you enjoyed. And there you have it. Those are 4 easy and somewhat simple watercolor landscapes that you can do in your sketchbook. Please let me know down in the comments if you tried any one of these paintings. I would love to hear from you. Please let me know if you have any ideas that you would like to see me do in my next video. And I will link Ohuhu's watercolor paints down below, as well as a code for you to put in when you order. Thank you so much for watching and stopping by. Please come by again soon, and I will see you in my next art video. Goodbye, everyone.